Tonight's episode includes a Manta Sleep affiliate link, which helps support the show at no extra cost to you. If you've ever tried sleeping with a regular sleep mask and found that light still gets in around the edges, or the mask presses against your eyes and just feels uncomfortable, Manta Sleep takes a different approach. Their masks are designed to give you a true blackout experience while keeping pressure off your eyes, so you can actually relax and forget you're wearing one. They also have several different versions depending on how you sleep, and one of the coolest is their Bluetooth audio sleep mask. It combines the blackout mask with built-in audio so you can listen to music, white noise, or even your favorite sleep stories without having earbuds in your ears all night. And for a podcast like this, that combination just makes sense. Block out the light, put on a story, and let everything else disappear for a while. If you're looking to upgrade your nighttime routine, check out Manta Sleep and find the mask that works best for you. You can find a direct link to them in the description of each episode. They also ship worldwide. Thanks for supporting the show. Now, let's get started. Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories. And tonight you may settle gently into a quiet journey through the lanterns of Lisbon in the fog, where warm lights glow like little moons above narrow streets, and every step leads deeper into calm. Let your shoulders soften now as though the day has become a shawl slipping from you, light and unneeded. Let your jaw loosen. Let your hands rest. There is nothing to hold, nothing to solve, nothing to hurry toward. The night is already here, and it asks nothing of you except that you breathe. Inhale slowly as if you are breathing in the cool mist from the river. Exhale and feel the last bright edges of thought begin to fade. Again, breathe in, easy and quiet. Breathe out and imagine the body becoming heavier, safer, more deeply supported. Somewhere beyond the ordinary world, Lisbon waits in a soft cloak of fog. The tiled walls are dim with silver moisture. The cobblestones shine as though they remember rain. The rooftops, the balconies, the sleeping orange trees, and the old stone steps are all held in a hush so tender that even the city's heartbeat seems to slow. As you listen, you do not need to follow too closely. The story will carry itself. The streets will turn gently. The lanterns will glow. And little by little, without effort, you may drift from being the one who walks into being the one who dreams. There was a traveler who came to Lisbon on a night when the fog had arrived before her. It had slipped in from the broad mouth of the river at twilight, rolling softly over the water, folding itself around the piers and fishing boats, then rising through the streets in pale, quiet layers. By the time evening settled fully over the city, the fog had filled the lanes and stairways of Alfama, dimmed the hilltops, softened the bells, and turned each lamp into a floating amber star. The traveler's name was Mara, though the city did not ask her name. It received her as it received the mist, with old patience and 1,000 hidden corners. She carried no heavy luggage, only a small cloth bag, a blue scarf, and a folded map that had already become unnecessary. The map showed streets and squares, but it did not show the way the fog moved, or how a staircase might appear from nowhere, or how a lantern might seem to beckon from behind a curtain of pearl gray air. Mara had arrived at the station after sunset, when the trains were sighing to a stop and the iron rails were cool beneath the drifting vapor. She had been traveling for many hours, long enough that the rhythm of wheels still seemed to rock gently inside her bones. Outside, the city waited with quiet blue windows and lamps blurred by mist. Somewhere, unseen, a gull called once from the direction of the river, and the sound dissolved so slowly that it seemed less like a cry and more like a memory of the sea. She began walking because the night felt too delicate for anything else. Up the streets she went, where the stones rose beneath her feet in patient, uneven patterns, polished by generations of footsteps. The buildings leaned close, not in crowding, but in companionship. Their walls were covered in tiles, some blue as deep water, some green as bottle glass, some white and yellow and faded by sunlit years. In the fog, their patterns became quiet secrets. A painted vine, a small bird, a ship with swelling sails, a flower that might have been there for a century, waiting for a stranger to notice it. Above her, wrought iron balconies held dark plants and empty chairs. Laundry lines crossed the alley like soft threads drawn between dreams. Doorways gave off traces of warm soup, beeswax, old wood, and the faint sweetness of oranges stored in bowls. Somewhere behind shuttered windows, a radio played so softly that the music seemed to come from the walls themselves, a slow, tender melody that rose and fell like breathing. Mara did not know where she was going, and this brought her a strange comfort. During the day, she had often known too much. Schedules, names, directions, obligations. But the fog had made everything simpler. The street ahead existed only a little at a time. A few shining stones, a green door, the curve of a wall, the glow of a lantern. The first lantern she noticed hung outside a tiny shop with a wooden sign whose letters were nearly hidden by mist. It was not a modern lamp, but an old glass lantern with a copper top and a handle darkened by age. Its flame did not flicker sharply. It breathed. A low amber light moved inside it, soft as honey, and in that light the fog turned gold. Mara paused beneath it. The shop window showed shelves of candles, clay bowls, folded linens, and small painted saints no bigger than a hand. Yet nothing inside seemed arranged for selling. Everything seemed to be resting. On the sill, a white cat slept with its paws tucked beneath it, its fur glowing faintly in the lantern light. The cat opened one eye, considered Mara with solemn kindness, then closed it again. Beside the door stood an old woman in a dark shawl, though Mara could not have said whether the woman had been there all along or had simply appeared from the mist. Her face was lined in the gentle way of paper that has held many letters. Her eyes were bright but not piercing, bright like windows lit late at night. "You are following the lanterns," the woman said. Mara smiled, not wishing to disturb the quiet. "I did not know I was." "Most do not," said the woman. "Not at first." She lifted her hand and with a slow gesture pointed farther up the street. Another lantern glowed there, barely visible through the fog, swinging beneath an archway. Then, Beyond it, perhaps another, and another after that, though it might have been only a star caught low in the mist. They lead where they lead, the woman said, and only on nights like this. Mara did not ask where. The question seemed too bright for the softness of the hour. Instead, she thanked the woman and continued along the stones, moving toward the next warm glow. The lane narrowed until the buildings almost touched overhead. The fog hung thick and gentle, beating on Mara's scarf, smoothing the sounds of the city into murmurs. Her footsteps made a quiet tapping. From somewhere below she could hear the faint roll of the river against the quay, though the water itself was hidden. It seemed that Lisbon had become an island of lanterns, each light floating in a sea of mist. At the archway, the second lantern hung from a hook shaped like a leaf. Its glass was green, and the flame within was pale gold, making the fog around it shimmer like moss after rain. Beneath the arch, a set of steps descended instead of rising, though Mara was sure the street had been climbing. The steps were wide and shallow, bordered by old walls where ferns grew from cracks in the stone. Drops of water gathered on their fronds, each one holding a tiny trembling lantern of its own. Mara went down. The staircase curved slowly, taking her away from the radio music and into a deeper hush. She passed a doorway painted the blue of evening, then a courtyard where a fountain whispered into a round basin. The fountain was shaped like a fish, and water slipped from its mouth in a thin silver thread. Around the basin stood pots of rosemary, lavender, and a small lemon tree heavy with green fruit. The scent rose faintly in the wet air, clean and calm, and Mara breathed it in. There was another lantern at the far side of the courtyard. This one was made of paper, though the fog did not dampen it. Its sides were painted with little boats. Each boat carried a moon in its sail. As Mara approached, the paper lantern swayed, though there was no wind. Its light touched the surface of the fountain, and the water changed. For a moment, Mara saw not the basin, but the wide river under a summer sky. She saw boats moving slowly past the city, their sails full and white. She saw children waving from the shore, women shaking rugs from balconies, men mending nets, and hills bright with morning. It was not a vision that startled her. It arrived gently, like a thought one has just before sleep, complete and calm and gone almost as soon as it appears. Then the fountain was only a fountain again. Mara stood very still. She understood then that the lanterns were not merely lights. They held memories, perhaps the city's memories. Perhaps the memories of everyone who had walked these stones and looked up at these windows and loved the river in their own quiet way. The thought did not trouble her. It made the night feel kindly watched over. A passage opened beyond the courtyard, roofed with climbing vines. Mara followed it, and the fog moved with her. It brushed her cheeks and eyelashes, softened the edge of every stone, and made her feel less like a visitor and more like a figure painted lightly into the city's old dream. The passage brought her to a small square she had never seen on any map. It was paved in black and white stones, arranged in waves. as though the sea had come inland and become still beneath her feet. In the center stood a fig tree, bare-branched and ancient, its roots lifting the pavement in slow curves. Around the square were houses with tiled fronts, shuttered windows, and doorways glowing faintly from within. Here, several lanterns hung from the fig tree. They were different from the others. Some were glass, some tin, some paper, some pierced with tiny star-shaped holes. They gave off no glare, only layers of soft light that mingled with the fog and settled over the square in amber, rose, and pale blue. Beneath them, seated on a low wall, was a man with a guitar resting against his chest. He was not playing loudly. His fingers moved over the strings as if not to wake the tree. The notes were slow and rounded. They drifted upward through the lanterns and disappeared into the fog. Mara had heard songs like this from open windows, songs that seemed to carry longing and comfort in the same breath. But here the music was so gentle that it felt less like a performance and more like the city humming to itself. The guitarist looked up and nodded. Mara sat at the edge of the square on a stone bench dampened by mist but not cold. She listened. The music seemed to gather the silence rather than break it. Each note left room for the next. Each pause was full and peaceful. As she listened, the lanterns in the fig tree began to reveal small scenes in their glass and paper walls. In one, a baker was kneading dough before dawn, his sleeves rolled high, his face powdered with flour. In another, a girl in a red coat chased pigeons across a plaza while her grandmother laughed from a bench. In another, two friends leaned against a railing above the river, sharing roasted chestnuts from a paper cone. In another, a young sailor tied a ribbon to a gate before leaving, and years later, older and slower, returned to find the gate still there. Mara watched without reaching for any meaning. The scenes were not asking to be understood. They simply glowed, existed, and faded, like lanterns inside lanterns. The guitarist finished his song with a note so soft it seemed to lower itself onto the stones and sleep there. He placed his hand over the strings. "Some nights," he said, "the fog keeps the city from forgetting." Mara looked at the lanterns. "Does it always remember so beautifully?" The man smiled, "Not always beautifully, but gently when it can." A white moth moved through the glow of the nearest lantern, then vanished into the mist. The guitarist lifted his instrument again, and Mara rose, knowing somehow that the lantern path was still unfolding. She thanked him with a nod, and he answered with the beginning of another quiet song. As she left the square, the music followed her only a short distance before becoming part of the fog. The next street rose steeply. Mara climbed slowly, and there was pleasure in the slowness. No one passed her. The city seemed to have given itself to sleep. Windows shone here and there like drowsy eyes. From a kitchen, she heard a spoon touch a bowl. From behind a wooden door, someone murmured a good night. On a balcony, rainwater dripped from a row of clay pots, each drop falling at its own unhurried pace. Halfway up the hill, she found a lantern standing on the ground beside a narrow stair. It was made of blue glass, so deep it was almost black, and its flame glowed like a small moon seen underwater. Behind it, the stair climbed between walls painted with fading azulejos. The tiles showed swallows in flight. In the fog, the painted birds seemed almost to move. Mara followed the stair. At the top, she emerged onto a terrace overlooking the hidden city. The view should have opened wide, but the fog covered everything. There were no rooftops, no river, no far bridge, no sky, only whiteness, luminous and calm. Yet scattered throughout that whiteness were lights, lanterns, lamps, windows, and perhaps stars, all suspended at different depths, each one blurred and breathing. Mara stepped to the railing. It was cool beneath her hand. Far below, unseen wheels hummed over rails, slow and metallic, then faded. A bell rang somewhere, not loudly, and the fog carried the sound in widening circles. It seemed to Mara that she stood not above a city, but at the edge of a quiet universe where each light was a world dreaming in its own soft way. On the terrace stood a small kiosk, closed for the night, with painted shutters and a striped awning heavy with mist. Beside it, under the shelter of a tiled roof, a little brass lantern burned on a round table. Around the lantern were 3 empty chairs. On the table rested a teapot, a cup, and a plate with a single small custard tart, golden and fragrant, as though placed there moments before. Mara hesitated only briefly. The night had been offering small kindnesses, and she had begun to trust them. She sat. The chair creaked softly. She poured the tea, which was warm despite the cold air, and lifted the cup in both hands. It smelled of mint and lemon peel. The first sip traveled through her like a candle being carried down a dark hallway. Warmth spread into her chest, her arms, her tired hands. The custard tart was delicate, with crisp layers that flaked gently at the edge, and a filling sweet as quiet sunlight. Mara ate slowly. Crumbs fell onto the plate. The lantern burned beside her, steady and small. In its brass sides, polished by many unseen hands, she saw a reflection, not of herself, but of a room. It was a simple room with a narrow bed, a quilt, a wooden wardrobe, and a window open to morning. On the sill was a bowl of oranges. A woman sat by the window, sewing a blue button onto a child's coat. The room was filled with such ordinary peace that Mara felt her eyes grow warm. Nothing happened in the reflection. The needle moved, the fabric gathered. The morning light rested on the floor. It was enough. When the image faded, Mara placed her hand near the lantern, feeling its warmth without touching it. Perhaps every city kept 1,000 small rooms inside itself. Rooms where soup was stirred, letters were written, shoes were set by the door, lullabies were hummed, and tired people leaned their foreheads against cool glass. Perhaps the lanterns remembered these things because they were too gentle to be lost. The fog shifted. A faint shape appeared beyond the terrace, where Mara had thought there was only open air. It was a stairway, narrow and descending, with a lantern at its first step. This lantern was clear, and inside it burned a flame so pale it was almost silver. Mara rose from the table, leaving the cup empty and the plate clean, except for a few golden flakes. She wrapped the blue scarf more closely around her neck and descended. The stair led through a quiet part of the city where the houses were very old and the stones underfoot were worn into shallow hollows. The fog here was denser, and Mara could see only a few paces ahead. Yet every time the path seemed about to vanish, another lantern appeared. Some were tucked into niches beside doorways. Some hung from iron brackets. Some rested on steps. Each one gave just enough light, no more than was needed. This pleased Mara. The lanterns did not reveal the whole road. They did not insist on certainty. They offered only the next turning, the next threshold, the next safe place for the foot to fall. And so she went on, breathing with the city. At a corner where 3 lanes met, she saw a tram standing still in the fog. It was one of the old yellow trams that climb Lisbon's hills, its paint softened to butter by the mist, its windows glowing faintly. No tracks were visible beneath it, and no driver sat inside, yet its doors opened with a sigh. A lantern hung at the front of the tram just above the window, and its light was warm and inviting. Mara stepped aboard. The wooden floor smelled faintly of rain and varnish. The seats were polished by years of passengers, sliding in and out, carrying baskets, flowers, books, umbrellas, worries, and hopes. Mara sat by a window. The doors closed without haste, and the tram began to move. It rolled silently at first, then came the soft, familiar hum, the gentle rocking, the faint ringing of a bell somewhere ahead. Outside the window, the fog flowed past in long white ribbons. Now and then, a wall appeared very close, tiled in blue, then a lamp, then the corner of a church, then a sleeping cat on a windowsill. The tram turned and climbed, descended and turned again, following tracks that seemed made not of metal but of memory. Other passengers sat nearby, though Mara had not seen them board. An old fisherman with silver eyebrows rested his hands on a folded net. A young mother held a sleeping baby whose tiny fingers opened and closed like sea anemones. A boy with ink on his sleeve leaned against the glass, his eyes half shut. A woman in a green coat carried a basket of violets. None spoke. All seemed content to be carried. The lantern at the front of the tram swayed gently. As it moved, its light filled the carriage with a quiet glow, and each passenger seemed surrounded for a moment by a small story. The fisherman's net held the shimmer of dawn water. The mother's shoulder glowed with lullabies. The boy's ink-stained fingers held unwritten poems. The violet seller's basket opened into a spring morning full of rain and bells. Mara watched, sleepy now, her thoughts loosening like threads in warm water. She felt that she could ride this tram forever and never need to ask where it was going. But after a while, the bell rang softly and the Tram slowed beside a wide, mist-covered square. The doors opened. The passengers remained seated, calm as figures in a painting. Mara understood that this stop was hers. She stepped down. The tram continued into the fog, its lantern fading until it became just another dim star, and then nothing at all. The square was broad and nearly empty. In clear weather, it might have been bright, busy, full of voices and footsteps. Tonight it was a moonlit chamber made of mist. Arcades stood along one side, their arches disappearing one by one into whiteness. The stones beneath Mara's feet were slick and shining. At the far end, where the river must have been, the fog glowed faintly. There were lanterns all around the square, but they did not hang from posts or walls. They floated. Mara stopped in wonder. Dozens of lanterns drifted slowly through the fog at shoulder height, each one carrying a soft flame in a glass globe. They moved with the patience of jellyfish in deep water. Some were amber, some pearl, some rose, some blue. Their lights touched the mist and opened it just enough to reveal brief glimpses of the world beyond. A stone lion asleep at the base of a statue, a row of orange trees along an arcade, the wet gleam of tram rails, a bench, a doorway, a woman's laughter from long ago, a sailor's song, a child's paper boat floating in a puddle after rain. Mara walked among the floating lanterns, careful not to disturb them. They shifted aside as she passed, making a path toward the glowing edge of the square. The air smelled of river water, salt, and the faint smoke of distant chimneys. The fog thinned slightly, and at last she saw the Tagus. The river lay wide and quiet beneath the night, its surface hidden and revealed by drifting veils. Across the water, no far shore was visible. Above it, the sky was the same color as the mist, so that river and air seemed woven together. Along the quay, lanterns rested at regular intervals, their reflections trembling in the dark water. At the very end of the quay stood a figure in a long coat, holding a lantern shaped like a small house. Its windows glowed from within. Mara approached. The figure turned, and she saw a man neither young nor old, with calm eyes and a beard silvered by fog. He held the house-shaped lantern by a ring at its roof, and inside its tiny rooms, warm lights shone. "You have come a long way through the city," he said. Mara looked back, though the square behind her had already vanished into mist. "I think the city brought me." The man nodded. "It often does when someone arrives tired enough to listen." Mara smiled faintly. She was tired, but not in the old way, not worn down. Rather, she felt emptied of hurry, made spacious by the lantern path. "What is this one?" she asked, looking at the lantern shaped like a house. The man lifted it slightly. Within its miniature windows, Mara saw many rooms at once. A kitchen with steam rising from a pot, a bedroom where curtains moved in a sea breeze, a hallway lined with coats, a table set for someone expected, a lamp left burning for someone returning. The little house held all the homes of the city, or all the feelings of home gathered into one warm, quiet glow. "This is the lantern of welcome," the man said. "It is lit for those who have wandered far, even if they did not know they were wandering." Mara listened to the river. Small waves touched the stone below with a hush and withdraw, hush and withdraw. "Where does the path end?" she asked. The man looked out across the water. "Where all good paths end, in rest." He gave her the lantern. It was lighter than she expected. The warmth of it passed through her hands and into her arms, not hot but deeply comforting. The tiny windows shone steadily. As she held it, the fog around the quay began to open in a slow, circular motion, as if stirred by an unseen tide. Beyond the quay, a narrow bridge of light appeared over the water. It was not a bridge of stone or wood. It was made of lantern reflections, each one touching the next. A path of trembling gold laid across the dark surface of the river. It did not look solid, and yet Mara felt no fear. The river was quiet. The lantern was warm. The city behind her breathed in its sleep. She stepped onto the first glimmer. The path held. Slowly carrying the house-shaped lantern, Mara walked out over the water. The fog closed gently behind her and opened ahead. Beneath her feet, the reflections rippled but did not break. On either side, the river moved in soft darkness, smelling of salt, rain, and distant places. As she walked, the house lantern grew quieter in her hands. Its little rooms dimmed one by one, not going out, but settling, as if everyone inside had finished their evening tasks and turned toward sleep. The kitchen light softened, the bedroom lamp lowered, the hallway fell still. The table waited in peace. Far ahead, in the middle of the fog, another glow appeared. It was low and wide, like a doorway made of morning, though it was still night. Mara walked toward it, and with each step she felt less need to remember who she had been before the fog. The traveler with the map, the person with schedules, the one who carried small worries, folded inside her like letters. All of that became gentle and distant. She was only a figure crossing quiet water, holding a lantern, breathing with the tide. At last the bridge of reflections brought her to a small island that could not have been seen from shore. It was round and covered with soft grass, silvered by mist. In the center stood a single olive tree, its leaves pale and whispering. Around the tree, dozens of lanterns rested in the grass, each one dim and peaceful, as though dreaming. There was a bed beneath the olive tree. It was simple, with white sheets, a wool blanket, and a pillow that looked cool and soft. The bed stood open to the sky, though the sky was hidden by fog. Beside it was a low table with a bowl of water, a sprig of lavender, and a small unlit candle. Mara understood. She set the house-shaped lantern on the table. Its glow was now very soft, no brighter than a night light seen from across a room. She removed her scarf and folded it carefully over the foot of the bed. Then she lay down. The sheets were cool at first, then warmed around her. The blanket settled over her with the gentle weight of being cared for. Above, the olive leaves moved, though no wind touched them. The lanterns in the grass breathed faintly, each one holding a memory now too soft to see. Across the water, Lisbon was hidden, yet Mara could feel it there. The hills and stairways, the tiled walls, the sleeping cats, the empty squares, the warm kitchens, the quiet music, all resting under the fog. The city no longer needed to be seen to be known. It was present in the same way. A lullaby remains after the singing stops. Mara's eyes grew heavy. The man on the quay, the guitarist in the square, the woman at the shop door, the silent tram, the floating lanterns, the river path. All of them seemed to drift farther away, not lost, only softened. The story loosened its hold on shapes and became warmth, mist, and breathing. The lantern beside the bed dimmed a little more. The fog gathered close around the island, not to hide it, but to shelter it. The river made a slow sound against the unseen shore. The olive tree whispered, then grew still. Mara slept. And now the lanterns grow softer. The city grows quieter. The fog folds over the rooftops, over the river, over the little island beneath the olive tree. Nothing needs to be followed now. Nothing needs to be remembered. The last lantern glows gently, then gentler still. A warm point in the mist, steady and kind. Breathing slows. The body rests. The night is deep and safe. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.